Hi there. You're either watching or listening to The Climb. And my name is John Sarakis, and this is brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. Today, we have an episode that is challenging for some people to talk about. And it was the challenge that our guest was willing and open enough to share about, which at the end of the day, growing a business is the tough part. Starting one is easy, especially in most states. It's just the filing of some information. And what a business is about relationships. And those relationships are the one with yourself, as well as whether it's your employees, your significant other, clients, essentially everyone around you. You have to manage those relationships. And in managing those relationships, you have to take care of those people. And at the foremost center of all that is yourself. So you have to do what is right by you. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. And that sometimes you don't even realize what the right thing for you to do is. But the most important thing is to understand that you're just doing the best you can. You're managing relationships, and you got to be the best person you can to yourself, all the while taking care of the people you can to the best of your capabilities that are around you. So with that said, do the best you can, and we're going to do the best we can and get into this this pre-show. So Dave, why don't you come out here?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. So you had a very active role in this episode. So I guess let's start. You've been through a divorce, and that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize this, but you and I's relationship got started right when I was going through it, and
Right.
that's why we're so close today. I was probably 4 years into the business. My relationship wasn't going great, and we decided to get divorced. And at that time, we've got clients asking for just imagine the stress of having your personal life crumbling away, and then a client's yelling at you, and you just can't bring that energy into that interaction. It was so difficult. I remember actually that same client a year later was upset about something, and I was like, look, I went through a divorce and you didn't even know. So I was like, I was focused. I delivered for you, and don't even give me that shit. So that was one time I was like, all right, it's challenging. And I really enjoyed this conversation with Michelle because, she was open and I was open about how we made it through, and it was a great conversation. It's tough. I mean, managing a relationship while managing a business, because managing a business takes a lot of time. It's not just a 9 to 5. It's, hey, I got to go to a networking event. Hey, this client needs me to join them for drinks, or even my good friends that he's starting his business. He's having difficulty in his relationship because of the amount of time he has to dedicate to the extracurriculars. It's challenging.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't realize that when they start their business, they don't realize there's going to be a trade-off, or people just aren't committed to it. They'll just give lip service and say this is something I'm willing to do. And I think, as I mentioned in the monologue there, people don't realize really at that time what it is that they want or they need up until a certain point. Some people just process that at a slower pace, or they just give so much and then they realize, like, okay, I've given too much. I've invested more than I'm willing to lose in this situation. I think the other part is, which she gets into, is when you care about that person and you're trying to do this for yourself, it's really hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on the flip side of that, when you don't care about that person and you guys are going at each other with it, it's also really hard. So no matter what, it's hard and it sucks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was lucky enough to have an amicable break. We did it. It wasn't a fight. We agreed. We were very, logical about it, she knew that if she went after me in a bad way, that her employees or her friends, which were my employees, because look, when you're in a small agency, a small business, your spouse knows your employees, they have a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew that they would probably lose their jobs, or I would just say, fuck it and blow it up, or
Mm-hmm.
So she knew that, and because of that, I said, look, keep the house then. You take the house, and it was balanced. It was a mature approach. And thankfully, we didn't have kids. I mean, a whole nother level when you throw kids in the mix. So
that's good. No, and
yeah.
I'm happy it turned out the way it did. And then I think in a lot of respects, Michelle handled hers really well as well. And I don't want to like take anything away from the episode. So if you had to give advice to anybody, what would you say that was going through a similar process?
Well, I mean, even on the side of the divorce, let's talk about the beginning part. Let's say if you did your business before you were in a relationship and you're starting to try a new relationship, because I've been through both of those seasons, and there's a story that reminds me of a story when my wife and I were just dating. We had these big plans for a Saturday, and at the time I was a partner in a landscaping company, and like 9 o'clock in the morning that Saturday, my partner calls me. He's like, the crew just walked off of this job. And I turned to my wife and I said, look, I got to go lay some sod. She's like, what? We have all these plans. And I'm like, hey, I own a business. This is part of it. So complete plans destroyed. She's annoyed, and it's kind of early in the dating. And I just had to, tell her, look, if I feel this is important, I've got to do it and I've got to be there. So I am the last man standing when it comes down to ultimate responsibility. I've got to go there and put the work in. And I made sure I sent her a cute little selfie with me all dirty after I laid a bunch of sod. So just so she knows I wasn't lying and that wasn't just an excuse. But but I mean, I would say be direct, like you need somebody that's going to be on board on the journey, because the journey is not easy. And sometimes you get called in the middle of the night, or sometimes there's an issue, and you have to be there. And some people are not going to be okay with that. And if they're not, then that's not a person that you're going to be able to build an agency with. So
yeah, that's a good point. And also, yeah, having an agency has its ups and its downs. You lose that big client, you get that big client, you lose key employees, people walk off, your job, whether it's laying sod or your agency. You want somebody that's going to be able to support you in that. And at the end of the day, if you're the breadwinner of that family, that's also tough. And I think what she gets into is her journey into trying to grow, and that's one of the toughest stages. It's very straining on a relationship because it's just so straining and it takes everything out of you. And I guess with that, you have to make sure that you have the right partner for that. So some people choose before, like you said, some people are in the middle, realizing where they're at. But I think it always just comes back to, right? Just, you're perfect the way you are. You just got to figure out, what the right way for you to be is.
And I will say, as an entrepreneur, you will not be the same person from day one to 5 years to 10 years. As an entrepreneur, you're growing. You're constantly growing. You will change faster than most people. Everyone says in marriages, people say people change. Mm-hmm. Entrepreneurs change faster. So that's tough to deal with. So, but now I think once you get past the 10-year mark, your change slows. It's like a curve, but the person I was on the day one that I started Oyova, from year 5, completely different.
Yeah. Reminds me of when somebody told me once that smoking alters your DNA. When I used to be a smoker, that was a huge moment for me, because I was like, wow, that's crazy. But I looked at it as a positive. I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, I can quit this or whatever. But that means anything I want, if I really focus on it, can alter my DNA. I can change and morph into whatever you want. And granted, on the flip side of that, you don't have enough water, of course, that's going to alter your DNA.
I think literally everything will alter your DNA.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And it was just something that they used for marketing purposes and getting people to quit smoking. But like that, what you just said, yeah, experience and the time and all those things and the tribulations is going to alter your DNA when it comes down to that mindset. Okay, I want this. This is going to happen. And on the flip side of that as well, if somebody wants to save your marriage, there's tons of different things that you can do to do that, if it's right for you. But you have to make sure that it's right for you.
Yeah, I mean, went through those things too, and we talk about it in this episode. I mean, I'll let you do the outro here, but I mean, this is a great episode. I really got into it. I lived through it. And if anyone gets helped by this interview, then I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, no, and I think to that credit, the reason that we do stuff like this is because owning a business is tough. I would say owning an agency is even tougher in most respects. Granted, I know there's some other tougher businesses out there. Septic tank removal comes to mind, but I hope that you get some value out of this. And I also want to thank Michelle. She was just amazing to be so open and willing to share a challenge like this. And please let us know what you think of the episode. Like, subscribe, do what you want with it. Shoot me an email, JohnJon@digitalmastermind.com. DM on LinkedIn is typically where I post these. And thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
All right. Yes, it's the first show that we've had Dave and I in the same shot. So this is going to be fun.
Very special.
So I'd like to start with your climb. How did you get here?
Sure. So let's see. I don't know how far you want me to go back, but I was raised in a very small town. My dad's a Southern Baptist minister. So we weren't very professionally oriented, very kind of small town life. So I knew I wanted sort of bigger stuff. Went to college, started out in college getting a journalism degree. And realized that journalists don't make much money. So I ended up switching to public relations, not really having any kind of clue of what that really meant. And then weirdly, I'm one of those people that actually got a degree in what I do now. So, and then I went on, I got a master's. What's that?
What university?
University of Florida.
Oh,
So,
okay,
yeah,
you're a Gator.
yeah, I'm a Gator. Never went to a football game while I was there. I know. Then I ended up getting a master's degree in international communications because I had this vague idea that I wanted to travel and work abroad, but had no clue of like how to do that. And I was dating my ex-husband at the time, and he got a degree in forestry. And but then got a master's degree in forest finance, and we ended up just sort of sending our resumes out everywhere we could find. And he got an interview. Neither of us had passports. Neither of us had ever left the country at the time. And he got this interview with this Finnish company that had a job opening in London, weirdly enough. And so we realized we would need to get married because I needed also a visa. So we kind of quickly got married and moved to London. So lived in London for 3 years, worked for a PR agency. And then we moved to Australia for 2 years. And I worked in PR again for a big nonprofit. And just loved the whole experience. But my career was kind of just sort of following my ex-husband's. And I was having this was before the days of social media. I'm old enough for that. And so my career was kind of having this sort of jumping around. I was recreating networks and relationships, and I felt it kind of stalling. So I wanted to move back and really figure out my career. And so we moved back, and I was still in PR consulting firms, but sort of, kind of finding my way. And I was working in PR consulting firms. And a few years later, still kind of also had this vague idea that I wanted to start my own business. But we were in the point where we needed 2 incomes. So I had an opportunity come my way with my still biggest client to this day, where they had parted ways with their PR agency and were looking for a new PR agency. And I just kind of convinced her that, hey, if I leave my job, I can do this. And kind of made a lot of promises that I'd come work in their office, 1 week a month and all this, and kind of just made the jump and grew it from there. And that was about 10 and a half years ago. So that's it in a nutshell.
So you're at your 10-year anniversary.
Yeah, we hit our 10 years in June. So
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
So journalism to PR, that's kind of a common jump, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's honestly, it's kind of the perfect. One of my big hiring philosophies is I like to hire a former journalist. It's not you don't have to have it, but it certainly sets you up for what we do, because we were really we come in and we act as journalists within a company. So our job is to kind of come into a company and find out what those stories are and then tell them, in a variety of ways. So having those journalism skills, I have former broadcast journalists, I have print journalists. They can come in and We can tell stories, and they're not scared to interview very technical subject matter experts. They know how to have those conversations and tell those stories. So yeah.
And then like explain, because it seems like every time I speak with a PR agency, like they're working on like a different facet. So explain like what is like your PR
we're
agency?
pretty niche. Yeah. So I had always done B2B PR, and so when I was working in London, there was a moment I did some consumer PR, which back then meant I went to a lot of boozy lunches, and I mean boozy lunches.
Yeah,
that was a big part of my job.
Peter's gin.
Yes. Oh my God. Really introduced. And this is from a girl who grew up in Keystone Heights, Florida, had never been. I have a funny story. I had never been anywhere. One of my biggest clients was MTV. So,
whoa, right on.
So one of my biggest clients was MTV Networks Europe. I took a plane full of journalists to Ibiza, Spain for MTV Europe overnight. But I'll never forget one of the first early meetings. We were all sitting around, and I've got all these it was a very bougie London PR agency, and everyone's sitting around and they're talking about their first ever concert, and this is MTV, my client. And at that point in my life, I'd never been to a concert.
Whoa.
Nor had I'd never been, because my family didn't allow concerts. That wasn't, Jesus would not have been proud, So I'd never been to a concert. I had barely watched MTV. We weren't allowed to watch MTV. It was but my point being, I did a lot of consumer PR, and there was a moment where I was at a store buying thongs for models for a photo shoot, and thinking, I got a master's degree for this. It wasn't my bag. So I really liked the more B2B stuff. It just felt I liked the meatier, substantive topics, and not to put down consumer PR. I just kind of gravitated toward the B2B stuff. The consumer PR back then was a lot of, like we had the big mobile phone account. It was just sending out phones to journalists, that we'd spend all day just packing up. It didn't feel intellectual to me at the time, and I kind of craved something a bit more intellectual.
I like B2B because I feel like you're dealing with innovative, smart people all the time. Like the consumer, there's a lot of not intelligent consumers. So
and also you can't get really deep into things. There's only so much you can say about a phone or a lipstick or right. There's not, it's for what we do. I mean, I think if I had stuck in it, I would have had to live in a major market to do that. I think to do it at a high level. So what's that? Jacksonville. Yeah. So, but yeah, it just at that level, it wasn't giving me that kind of substance that I was seeking. So I really kind of went the more B2B route. And so what we do now, so my first ever client, that's still our biggest client, we went to dinner with them last night, was a big architecture, engineering, and construction firm. So our two markets now are corporate law firms and architecture, engineering, and construction. So really we focus on B2B professional services. And we do thought leadership. So we're interviewing lawyers about, for example, COVID is a big issue right now. And, can employers require vaccinations or, any kind of issue? And I honestly, while a lot of people, have opinions about working with lawyers, I like the kind of work we do with lawyers because they work on interesting stuff and we just get to learn about it all the time. So we're just constantly interviewing them, drawing out, analysis, insights about whatever, and it's a wide variety. We work on a wide variety of attorneys, and, writing media pitches, blog posts, case studies, we're writers really. And video is a big thing. And then same on the architecture, engineering, construction. I know a lot about very niche, interesting topics. One of our biggest AEC clients builds food processing plants. So I can tell you very gross details about how meat is processed and, because we go in depth, we visit the plants, we interview the people on the floor, we write a lot of, cool content. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's in your experience, I think it's important that you don't have the insecurity because you've worked with some major brands. Because I'll meet other people that haven't worked with major brands, and they'll be in a niche and they're always like longing for something else. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
found your
Yeah,
fit.
yeah.
You're like, no, this is
Yeah.
the people that I want to work with.
Well, yeah, honestly, we have major brands in the niches that we work with. So, we work with, multi-billion-dollar companies. So, I don't, I guess I don't feel it there. And I was weirdly turned off by the big consumer stuff, the big brand stuff. So I was also very, and I know this about myself now, very, impatient about climbing the ladder, and I felt like if I'd stayed in the kind of bigger brand stuff, would have had to slog through corporate life, and I wouldn't have had the patience to do that. So I needed to be in this side of it. So I went into corporate for like 6 months once and ran away screaming. So
Yeah, I did 6 months at CSX here in
I did Florida
Jacksonville.
Blue for 6 months. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
God, it
same.
was the most just god awful 6 months I've ever done.
I started at
Same.
a company that became a corporate company, and I left. Like I couldn't do it. It was like really fun, and we'd go wakeboarding in the mornings and stuff, and then it turned into like TPS reports, and it was a nightmare.
And a lot of people doing nothing and not knowing that they're doing nothing. So
and master delegators that hide is the thing that pisses me
the
off.
hiding,
I'm like,
I'm like, the ability to hide.
What do you do here, man?
Yeah, you don't.
I had a boss that their favorite saying was "out of sight, out of mind," and I'm like, "What? We can't get anything done."
Yeah. I know there was people there that had worked there for 10 years, and if you'd asked them really what they did, there wasn't a clear answer.
They get scared. And, like they're amazing at just not getting in the limelight.
Right. Their top job
but it has
is to not get fired.
Right.
Yeah, but it has a opposite side where if you are very good at what you do, it's not going to be recognized quickly. So right. So that was my frustration. I was looking around like, no, like you should do this, you should do that, and getting.
That's why we're entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah,
exactly. This is why we started our business. Like, the skills that I develop as an entrepreneur are like constantly refreshed year over year over year and kept at the leading edge. Whereas with the second you go to one of those corporate entities, that's the end of your growth. You've stopped growing. And there's some corporate entities out there that aren't, that typical, but there's a lot of just old school that's just
and you have to improve your skills to survive. You have to be good at what you do to survive in a smaller consulting business, or else you're not, and to grow. So I needed that. So, and I think I learned about my personality that I need that sort of, I need to be recognized. And I always hated knowing that about myself, but I couldn't sit in a corporate environment and not get that back, so.
Do you know when you discovered that you needed that recognition? Was there like anything distinct?
Or an aha moment?
Yeah.
I took a personality test probably, and I saw that, and I'm like, yep, Yep. And it's not like I need like awards I need that success maybe, or I couldn't have survived under a boss that I knew wasn't. I couldn't have survived under somebody I felt like I could do their job better. That's what I mean about that. That would have driven me nuts, and it did. I left. So but I remember taking a personality test, going, oh yeah, that's So
it's funny though. Some of those personality tests that I've taken, like there's certain things on there that for one I take it and then I take another. I'm like, wait a second, they're like contradicting each other.
Oh, really? Might have been might have been pretty on target. Yeah.
But the thing about those is, so I noticed this and I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but some people answer those things of what they think they are,
right,
and not who they truly are.
Yeah, that's true.
You're answering it based on what you want to be.
Aspirational.
Yeah, or an idea of yourself. Yeah. True. Yeah.
What would you say? So you were in London and Australia. I mean, just you could say general marketing differences, PR differences. Like, what are the differences in those markets that we don't have here?
Well, so in London back then, and America's become much more like it. It was the land of celebrity. I mean, they were really the creators of kind of the celebrity culture, the reality TV. That wasn't here back then. So, they have their daily newspapers. I mean, they're the original culture that was celebrity obsessed, and social media wasn't around back then, but it drove, and also they had very different journalism standards. So, and again, that's changed here, but back then, there was this very clear delineation between, advertising and PR. And in London, there wasn't that. I could buy coverage. I could go out, take a journalist out, shower them with, a really fancy lunch and gifts and get coverage out of it. So that's why I said I was going to a lot of, lunches and boozy lunches and that kind of thing, and taking them on trips and that kind of thing. So from a PR standpoint, it was very different. It's changed more to that style here now, but there's still here, there's more of a delineation. But that was the big difference. And just how the media there, just from the size of the country, it's a smaller country. London rules everything. There's not all these multiple markets. It's everyone reads the national media, the national couple of papers, that kind of thing. But like I said, I was working for, one of my clients was the World Wildlife something. And I pitched for, so in the, I can't remember which paper it is, but it's very famous. They have the page 3 models, and the model is always topless. So you'll be on the train and it's a daily newspaper. So you'd be on the train into work, and business people are sitting there, and there's just a topless model, and it's the page 3 girl. So I pitched for them to body paint them in as wild animals in honor of World Wildlife Day or something. And that's why I was out buying thongs and had to find a body painter and, that kind of thing. So, but those were the different, just how the media is, it was different, but definitely the US has become a lot more, in that style. So
our journalism standards are being lowered essentially, and people are maybe drinking a little bit more at lunch. That explains the media today.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Exactly. And the celebrity obsession. Yeah. Yeah. If you could tie anything to a celebrity, I had a pitch with Kylie Minogue in her hot pants, and I can't quite remember it. It was so Kylie Minogue was the big celebrity. She's Australian, but she was big in London at the time. She was kind of like the Britney Spears there, and we pitched something around her hot pants. I it was a surreal, a few years. So, but fun. I mean, I'm really glad I did it. It was a blast. So,
right on. And then, so you've owned your agency now for 10 years, right? Or 10 and a half.
Yeah. Yeah.
So over your career, what have you felt is the biggest challenge that you've overcome or had to have dealt with?
I mean, so career-wise, I would say it took me a long time to figure out my business model. So, as when I started, content wasn't, I love content marketing, developing content, but, freelancers have really, companies can go get a freelance writer very cheaply. And a lot of companies don't value great writing either, and at first that was my brand, was great writing, and then I would just bang my head up against a wall whenever there seemed to be very little or value around that, and just the proliferation of freelance writers. So that's why I decided to kind of focus more on PR, because that would get our foot in the door, and to niche down. So I niched down into law and AEC, and that really, law firms want to know that that you can, and then we tend to build the business once we get in, because our writing and our skills are at a different level than I think, you can get from a freelancer or, just somebody who's just a writer, isn't a strategist around B2B content, how it plays through the sales funnel. But I struggled a lot with that in the beginning, because, I knew I was good at it. I was achieving, for my biggest client, we've got over 80 million in sales directly from content, just content, no paid ads, no nothing, but getting people to really kind of recognize that value. And I mean, that's the other thing, you're in business, you've got to find a product that people value, so yeah. I kind of played around with that for a long time. And I think we're finally at a place we're actually getting, on RFP lists for, some of the world's largest law firms, big companies that focus on the AEC sector. So the niching down has been what's really helped us grow, who want a niche player and who value that kind of level of work that we do. So
Have you thought about going after law firms that specialize in the architectural industry?
It's a good idea. I have not, honestly.
Comes full circle there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have not.
All bases
That's
covered.
a good point. And then, from a personal perspective, I was about 5 years into the business when I got a divorce. I was married for 18 years. I married, like I said, I married a guy I went to high school with. We're still very good friends, but it was a very painful several years. It took us several years to split. We grew up together. We traveled the world together, kind of built our lives together. And so doing that while trying to kind of come into the office every day and be a boss was, I would say, and I've been a very lucky person, when you told me that we were going to focus on a challenge, I kind of sat there and thought, God, shit's been good. I got a really great, I haven't had any health scare or anything, but certainly, so from that, it was very much a process of, one, knowing that, and I've kind of come out of this thinking, to be a good boss, you got to have your life sorted. You can't be a good boss if you've got, if you're not a healthy person,
Yep.
It took me a while to kind of get there. So, and I think even the years before we started getting divorced, I knew things were wrong and, I wasn't healthy. So I think that kind of, process, and I feel like I've kind of just come out. It takes a while, even like I've talked to a therapist about this, and I thought, why did this whole process take me so long? And she's like, it takes most people that, especially long marriages. I mean, some people just kind of, I don't know, pull a lever and it's done. But for me, I drug it out. But he and I are, great friends and kind of have come around to that. And I feel like I'm in this very healthy space, but it took quite a while. So.
I went through a divorce with my business as well. And, my big concerns were, is she going to try to come after the business? I mean, this was a business that was created in the marriage.
Yeah.
And she was great about it, though, because, my employees were her friends as well. And she knew that if there was an attack on the business, that I'd probably dissolve it. I'm not.
Yeah.
So she knew that it was good. It was, and then, like we've talked before, like after that, I had a lot more free time to build my business. I probably can attribute that divorce probably grew my business by 30-40% over the next couple of years. I'm not happy about that.
I know. Yeah.
I mean, I am, but I don't recommend getting a divorce.
Eric is happy about that.
Yeah. And then,
yeah, for me, it wasn't time because I don't have kids. We never had kids. He traveled a lot. I think it was just more mental space, just constantly being in a bad mental space and not having your life in a good spot and not, just kind of coming in every day and being focused and, clear about things and just feeling good about yourself. So I think that was that for me. And it took, a lot of therapy and a lot of, working through that. And now I feel much more clear-headed, and also I think too, any decision I make honestly really just impacts me and my employees now. I don't have that going on. And there was a shadow of that. He wasn't threatening to take anything away. He does very, very well in his own career, extremely well. But it was just more, again, just kind of the headspace, and we would just fight constantly. It was just, it was a bad place to be in for a few years. Launching
a business in a marriage is very difficult because I think at the beginning, you just have to hustle so much, go to networking events, and you have to get yourself out there. And I mean, it's taking time away from the evening that your spouse wants from you. And you're constantly having to be like, I got to go to this event. And then you come home buzzed and you had a good time and you're like, it was like a cause of fights. And
yeah.
So
I noticed that was a key issue, honestly. So we had followed his career. He has a phenomenal career. We had followed it. And so each time he made a move, we were moving for his career. And I would sort of figure myself out in whatever city we landed in. We moved a lot. And so my career took the back seat. Even though we didn't have kids, I kind of handled all the, life stuff,
Yeah.
And then, And then I was making very good money before I started my own agency, and it, went down to, thankfully I had one client, but it went down to, a third of what I was, a fourth maybe. And yet I was working 10 times as much, and I wasn't available to do all the stuff. Yeah. So,
Right.
and I don't want him to see this and be like, really again. So, but yeah, that was the kind of the friction point of a lot, was kind of me saying, wait a minute, this is my time to, to focus on this. And I don't have time to do all the, stuff that, gets done. So yeah, that was a constant. And then he would want to also, oh God, I almost feel guilty because we're good friends now. He would want to have input on the business because how well I did impacted our bottom line. And that didn't go over well for a marriage already and having issues. So yeah, definitely starting my business was kind of probably a trigger that kind of, but it was already on shaky ground. So, and honestly,
it's you taking a stand though in that relationship. Like, this is important to me. Like, I've followed you everywhere you wanted to go, and this is what Michelle wants.
Yeah, I really hope he doesn't see this.
So interesting on that point with my my current wife. She started a business, and I've learned that I give an idea and I step back. Like I don't try to help push it. She either goes, wow, that's great, or and I know when she goes, that it's not gonna happen. So
that was a massive friction point for us.
I go, hey, you should do this. And she goes, And I'm like,
take it under advisement.
I gotta go outside.
Yeah, I look at couples who are in business together always, and I think, how in the world? Because that was a massive friction point for us. So, and I never, I always did decently well in the beginning. I was never, making nothing, but certainly, for me, anyways, it took 10 years to where I'm really truly making what a business owner should make. And I think for him that was just it just became a friction point for us. So,
But the guy that got into forestry couldn't have been that concerned with money when he was in college, right? I mean,
he does so well. So he has this very niche career. He is in forest finance. So he does big timberland asset investments for institutional investors. And he also he has a further niche in international. So he's traveled every part of the globe you can imagine. So they build these big, and I've never been very good at explaining it, but he builds these big investments for institutional investors who want to invest in timberland. And it's actually a real sustainable play nowadays. So big institutional investors want to invest in a sustainable asset class, and timber is considered that. And so he, for a while was, going and convincing institutional investors to invest in timberland. And then, and his company just got bought out by JP Morgan. He's done quite well.
My one trip to London, the one guy that I met there that I had a great relationship with was a guy from Sweden, worked for Halliburton, and his entire job was to manage and move lumber.
Wow.
He was super wealthy. Super wealthy.
Interesting. Yeah. He was we would go to parties and he was always the popular guy. And I'm like, this guy went to forestry school. Like, but man, people love to talk about that to him, especially in Australia. Australia was very, so when I was living there at the time, it was 2003 to 2005, and we had just come out of the Bush presidency. And at the time that seemed very, scandalous and full of, especially people in these countries, but they didn't talk things like religion or abortion. They talked things like environmental policy, so they wanted to talk to a guy who knew trees, at parties. It was always a different level of political discourse than I was used to. So yeah, he could sit there and inform them and he was doing these interesting projects where they'd have big fires and he'd go and consult on, how to handle the land. And it's actually pretty interesting. Who knew?
Yeah, it is. So. I'd love to see an Australian political argument now. Yeah.
They're much more high-minded than we at the time. Who knows if they've changed. Not the British. The British are not, high-minded. The British are just, the
They
British.
hate
They're very
Brits too. Yeah.
they're just very actually. So I have a soft spot in my heart for a little bit, but they used to say I'd always go to parties and they'd always say they were always just shocked that I could be funny. So there was this assumption that all Americans had no sense of humor or
Really?
wit about them. Oh yeah,
So
the
dry.
Brits believe they own humor. Oh yes, the
Oh,
Brits have a very they own humor. Yeah.
Most comedians I can't stand.
Yeah,
watching.
and most I can't even think of a good British comedian.
So
Well,
the weirdest,
there's a few, but yeah.
the weirdest thing that I always got from London was their smooth sausages that they ate. For
Okay.
breakfast.
Huh.
Did you ever-
Oh yeah, and the baked beans on toast.
It's more like a hot dog than a breakfast sausage. They call them smooth sausages, and I was like,
What's a rough sausage?
I don't know, but I was like, ugh, I can't believe you eat this for breakfast.
Huh.
Yeah,
Like you go there for Burger King, and you do not get a breakfast sandwich like you would think.
No.
yeah.
Beanie
Yeah,
weenies
and
for breakfast.
baked beans on toast is a very commmen breakfast dish. Honestly, and the drinking, they drink heavily there.
Really?
It's not a
Culture.
stereotype
Part
for
of the
nothing.
culture.
Yeah, it's
I
it's
love
part of
going. I went to this place called the Hobgoblin, and I'm sitting there literally drinking beer in a bar older than my country.
That's cool though.
Mhm.
That
I dig that. I love the historicals. That's why I hate Vegas. There's no history in there, so that's why.
We don't go to Vegas for the history. Yeah,
I know. But it's just one of those things that just helps me connect to a place. But I appreciate you sharing your divorce. I'd like to ask some more questions in there.
Sure.
Let's say somebody is going to go through one. Like, what are some tips that you would give them? And I don't know where you were, whether you announced it or it was announced to you. Like, how would you frame that conversation for somebody that's maybe going to go through it?
I'm a big believer in therapy. Find a therapist. Don't make it so taboo. To me, therapy is like it's like exercise for your emotional state. I mean, we've all you guys know this, that success in business is often just being the whole EQ thing, but it's true, like being able to kind of handle yourself and your emotions and your
100%.
thoughts and all those sort of things. That's a big part of just being a successful professional. And so when you're going through kind of like a major life change and crisis, you got to prioritize that kind of thing. So I used to joke that I checked myself into therapy. I would go weekly. And that was big for me. And so I recommend that to any of my friends. Honestly, going remote helped me a lot. So what was hard for me at the time was going through a massive sort of change and then kind of coming into the office and being that boss, because, you set the tone for your people. And that was challenge. I would wait till everyone left and just sort of felt like I would collapse, and even though my divorce had passed, I love being remote because I can have a bad day and I don't feel like I have to kind of, really kind of think about the fact that I am, 8 people's boss. I can be very, I can have my day, and, just stay on Slack or whatever. So, I think this new culture can help, when you're kind of going through that stuff, because I was very aware of that and it was tough for me at the time. I was exhausted by it. And that's part of the reason I actually decided to go remote in 2018. It was part of the reason I was just tired. I was tired of having gone through all that and kind of coming in and being the boss every day. And felt like I do think I'm a better boss this way. So
it's as far as the therapy is concerned, like, can you talk about, like, all right, you went online and found like a psychologist. I think not enough people realize, what steps it takes. They just continually hear it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I got a referral from a friend. I went through a few though. You have to figure out who's right for you. So like I had this
You're
one
just
therapist.
like, all right, I'm creeped out. I gotta go.
Yeah, I did. I had one therapist. I was wearing a like a chain necklace, and she was like, oh, she started saying that I was saying that I felt chained in my relationship because of the necklace I was wearing, and I was like, out,
Yeah, we're done here.
you know, I'm not a religious person at all, so I needed somebody who was not religious. So I saw a very religious therapist for a while, but I was very clear up front with him, you know, don't bring it in. And he was great for a while. But you learn, you gotta figure out your things. Yeah. And
Yeah.
some people are, I want to hear the science and the research behind the way, you know, I want it to be, I don't want to just sit there and pay $10 an hour for, you know, somebody to chat with. I want somebody who's coming to me with, you know, educated insights, and not from the Bible. So, you know,
Yeah.
that was what I was looking for, and not kind of magical voodoo either. Sounds
Right.
bad,
Nothing
but
theoretical.
yeah.
So
Nothing. Yeah.
New age.
Do you just ghost your
New
therapist, or do you break up with them?
You ghost them. Pretty much, yeah.
Do they call concerned? Or like, I thought we had some breakthroughs there. Were you?
Yeah. I think one. So I had the male therapist I had who was actually a pastor, but very smart guy. And you know, my friend had told me, look, this guy's a pastor. We should give him a chance. You know. And we had very intellectual conversations about religion, because I'm a full on atheist, you know.
Yeah.
And my father was a Southern Baptist minister, but he was, if you can talk to me intellectually about it, I'm cool, you know. And but I told him that I needed a female therapist, because I had started to date and I just felt weird, you know, telling him some stuff. So, you know, I was just like, I need a woman, and he was, you know, fine with it. So. The woman with the chain thing, I just ghosted. So.
No, and I think that's important.
But you got to look around. It depends on if you want insurance to pay for it, if you want to pay out of pocket. I just go to ones that I pay out of pocket. But if you want insurance, you have to go through insurance. But honestly, asking friends, I've seen people post on Facebook, you know, looking for it. There's also some sites that you can go and look for, reviews of people, but it really just is kind of, and you got to go and am I getting anything out of this? Because it's not cheap, you know?
Right.
So, and you got to just get somebody that it feels like you're getting some growth out of it. So,
and you're going like steadily, like once a week. Boom, 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 boom.
Still, when I was heavy into that, and then I started going every other week, then now I probably go once a month, and I kind of consider it a tune-up. So,
okay, that's cool. Yeah,
because it's funny that when I go to therapy, still I think during the day about what I'm going to talk to her about. You know, it's like an all-day process. You know, then you know we talk. It just kind of gets you to think more. You know, about, you know, where you're at in your life, and where you want to go, and are you doing the things you want to do? Are you being who you want to be? It just it's like a checkup. It's probably the way religious people use church, you know. And I used to think about that a lot, because not being religious, I didn't have that process of, you know, when you're not religious, you don't have that check-in about that kind of, you know, however you want to call it. So I think people who may have been turned off by religion like I was need some other avenue to kind of have those, you know, to think about those issues and stuff. Otherwise you don't do it. There's nothing in your life that pushes you to do it. So that's what therapy is for me. So
I've actually become religious this year, and
oh wow.
And actually, I get the idea behind it of when you pray about something over and over. It's the same with life. If you think about something over and over again, you're probably going to make it happen.
Right. True.
And so
I've always, religion offers so many, and I don't know, we're now in a discussion about religion.
It's going to be good.
So many benefits that when you're like me, I grew up, like I said, in a very strict Southern Baptist household. My dad's a minister. It was a very early, this is not for me, I don't believe it. But you miss out on a lot of things that religion does provide, you know, that question of what do you stand for, what's right, what's wrong, what's important, but also the community, that kind of support, somebody, you know, a pastor is there to talk to, you know. So I do, I've often thought there, you know, and there's groups out there for people, but you know, you have to figure that out for yourself if you're not going to go the religion route. So
it's interesting. I grew up in the complete opposite. My dad didn't believe anything. We never did anything.
Oh, interesting.
And then I had a daughter, and I was like, I don't love the direction of a lot of our culture is going. And I was like, God, I just, you know, and I found, you know, something happened, and a friend invited me to church, and I was like, this is what I want.
Yeah. And, what you're needing. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I've learned, I used to be kind of militant anti-religion when I was younger. I'm not at all now. It was just a reaction to what I grew up with, you know. Well, so
I will say the church I go to is non-denominational, I guess. Yeah. And it doesn't have the thing that made me go, ooh, I like this is I didn't have to get on a pew. I didn't have to get up. I didn't have to sing this. I didn't, you know, it's
no
like
traditions.
Right. I'm just coming there to listen to the pastor tell me a message. And it feels like every week is the message that I needed to hear. And, you know, every time I'd go to like Catholic mass with friends, again, I didn't grow up religious. Yeah. And so they'd be like, oh, you got to come to, you know, Christmas mass. And I'm like, God damn, how many times do I have to kneel down on this thing? Like, it just.
How religious was that, Michelle?
Bad religious person. Bad religious.
That was my take.
My poor parents in my mouth. Yeah. I think I made a joke at Thanksgiving with the F word in it. They just, you know.
Do you give 10%? Do you do the tithing thing?
I don't know if it's quite 10%, but I give a good chunk.
Yeah, that's the part that bothers me. And I like spirituality, but I don't like religion.
Yeah.
Excuse me, cash. Were you writing checks?
I do automatically.
They automatically tithe? Yeah, I don't know. There's something about that just bothers me. I like, but I love all the things you said, like the community. Like that's huge, right? I think that's a huge benefit of it.
Super huge.
The praying part, right? You're literally talking about it, and then somebody that's
it's like meditation, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Right. It's not even like if you take the religion out of it, like even
Nikola
Tesla advocated constantly thinking about what you want to achieve in life.
Yes,
and if you think about it constantly, your actions are going to be, is it towards that goal or not? Right, and you'll feel guilty if you do something that's not towards that goal.
Yep.
Yeah,
and
it's also not what you want, but who you want to be. I think that's when you don't have religion, there's nothing kind of constantly saying, you know, who do I want to be? Like, what kind of person do I want to be? And that's where I do think there's a gap for people. And I struggle with when in this country, there's, you know, the other nice thing. So England and Australia are basically atheist countries.
Correct.
There is no religion. Yeah. Yeah, Australia, very much so. Especially Australia, least religious in the world, I think.
No idea. And
it felt very freeing to me, having come from this heavy religious, you know, background. It felt so freeing. And I came back, and one of my first meetings was when we were living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was with the YMCA, and they prayed at the lunch, you know, and I thought, Jesus Christ, you know, here I am again, you know. And I guess that's my only problem with American culture is that it's either that or nothing, you know. And I think there's got to be some more. And I actually try to be open about how I am, because I think it's sort of like the fact that I'd never wanted to have kids. I think we have to be more open about these things. I used to feel my lack of religion was sort of, you know, it was as taboo as, you know, in my family as if I'd been gay, you know, and it was a shock to everyone. I almost kind of had to come out, you know. And I think if we start being a little more open, and, you know, you can be a good person and still not believe in God, you know.
One belief like that doesn't define you.
Yeah. When you can still be a good person, I think we have to stop kind of associating religion with good, you know. So you can be both. So boy,
I think you did hit on a point though, comparing those other countries. Like I think Americans, we love to fight. We love to be offended, and we love to fight. It gives us like identity.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In London, especially, I mean, they're very much the Catholic of they go at Christmas. That's it, you know.
Yeah.
And there's just religion isn't a part of daily
Greek Orthodox,
life,
and that's kind of like me too.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, Easter. My uncle said everybody's born, not everybody resurrects. So Easter's a bigger deal. So if you're gonna go, you got to go. And he's like, all right, I'm going Easter.
It's not a part of discourse or conversation the way it is here. It's you know, it's just not, it's not even a factor, definitely not a part of politics, so it was refreshing. But I've come off please don't think I'm like hating, militant about it. I used to be, I'm not anymore. So you grow,
Yeah. We just picture the room full of like upside down crosses, that kind of thing.
Oh, my friends joke all the time. Watch out, Michelle, there's a church. Are you going to catch on fire?
Oh, I love that. No, I appreciate you being so open to share these things. So based on what we've talked about today, is there anything else that you think the world should know?
Oh, the world should know, huh? No, I mean, if you're a corporate law firm or an architecture, engineering, construction firm, you're going to get the smartest, advanced people ever telling your story. Little plug for us. No, I really appreciate you guys having, and also Digital Mastermind. I'm very quiet when I come to those events. Honestly, I'm a little intimidated by the people in the room. But I've learned so much, and I've been really thankful to be a part of that group. And I should make those monthly calls more often. So
awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right.
This was great.
Cool.
Yeah. Other than that, really appreciate you being. I mean, you talked about some really heavy things today, so I just want to acknowledge what a badass you are. So just
Thanks.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Grateful for that.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Awesome. All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.